Alright guys, we're back with some more worldwide content. We've already made a video on the new EZA TEQ Zamasu, who's ridiculously good by the way. Cannot wait to try him out in difficult content. Now we have the Trunks. He too is also level 10 links, as you can see. The only thing is, not quite rainbowed. We do have him at 90%, which is still very nice. But this guy, I'm not gonna lie, has some very good 200% leads. Of course, the new LRVB goes on Orange Piccolo's 200% lead, Bond of Parent and Child, which we have him on now with LRVG and Trunks. I know they've aged, right? But he works very well with them. Of course, them in slot 1, him in slot 2 while he's stacking. He also goes on 23rd World Tournament Goku's 200% lead, Dokkan Fest Godku's lead, Beastless Gohan's lead. He has a ton of good 200% leads, which I didn't realize he would have so many, but fair enough. So if you're missing a few of these, there is easily an alternative. So right now we are starting on a 333k attack stat, 172k defense, and Trunks is in the first form anyway, stacking attack but greatly raising defense by 50% for 3 turns. Even though he's only going to be in this form for 1 turn and 1 turn only, he has that for 3 turns. Not sure why, but he does. And of course, very similarly to Zamasu, starts with 140% attack and defense. Superclass allies get Q+2. He'll launch an additional attack that has a 50% chance of becoming a super, which is what we want. Because at least that way, yes, it is only attack, but at least he gets to stack up a bit more before he transforms. It would have been nice for Trunks, considering Zamasu has damage reduction and a lot of it. It would have been really nice for Trunks if he began stacking both attack and defense in base. Like, I know it's only going to be there for 1 turn, but still. But it would have been nice if he was stacking attack and defense pre-transformation, or he could do both, but since he doesn't stack defense until he transforms, which he does stack it by 50%, both attack and defense when he transforms. It is by 50, which is good, very good. I think one thing they should have gave Trunks, at least when he transformed, is he should have been able to, he should have guard, not permanent guard. I think he should have had guard for like, what, 3-4 turns just to kind of cover him while he stacks. Because if you think about it this way, Zamasu has that. Zamasu has it permanently. Once Zamasu transforms, yes, you're not stacking as much attack and defense as Trunks. You're only doing it, what, by 20-30%, whereas Trunks is doing it by 50%. But he has 50% damage reduction the entire time he does it. Whereas Trunks is just purely stacking. I think you might be able to super attack more times than Zamasu, which is nice. But as I said, it wouldn't even need to be permanent. Just like a 3-4 turn guard, just to kind of cover him while he starts to stack up a bit, get his defense going. Because remember, he doesn't stack defense in base, he just stacks attack. So I would have said, you know, a 3-4 turn guard would have helped out Trunks quite a bit. Just to kind of help him, you know, cover himself, just to be a bit safe while he does get those first few early stacks in while you're building up that defense. I feel like that would have been probably a good thing to do, and it helped him out a bunch. But he doesn't have that. Not only that, he does have a 30% chance to crit with each tap performed in base, but again, you're going to have to hope that additional pops in his passive, and potentially the hidden potential with additionals pop as well. So we now have him transformed, which now he is Super Saiyan, so he does link a little bit better. Not only that as well, we are going to start at stacking our attack and defense by 50%. So we're already up to a 634k attack stat from 2 stacks in base. We're up to just shy of 400k defense, which is good. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the majority of difficult content, his defense is actually enough. But again, in like the newer red zone stages and the Shadow Dragon event, I feel like, again, like a short 3-turn guard would have benefited him a whole lot. Because if he gets supered, Trunks doesn't have extra coverage. Trunks doesn't have extra padding the same way Zamasu does with all the damage reduction. So I feel like he's been shagged like a little bit there. I feel like he's been done a little bit dirty there. But still, I'm not going to write him off just yet. So he now has attack and defense plus 150. Of course, retains the Superclass Allies Key+2 support. He'll then get Key+1 up to 4. And an additional attack and defense plus 25% up to 100% at the start of each turn. So you don't have to do anything to get that. You just have to wait for turns to pass. So you just have to wait for what? 5 turns? No, 4 turns to get that. He'll then launch an additional attack which has a 70% chance to become a super. will launch another additional attack. There's a 50% chance of becoming a super. So that he has two built-in additionals, one with a 70%, one with a 50% chance to pop, which is good, especially because you need him to stack up a lot. This is kind of their way of making up for the fact, or their way of covering Trunks, considering he doesn't have like damage reduction or guard the same way Zamasu does. So it's nice. So, and if you have dupes in him, you could potentially super attack 4 times in one turn, which is great because that's 4 stacks by 50%. But I do still think like a short 3-4 turn guard would have benefited him a lot. But this is also how well he links with Vegeta and Trunks. And to think Vegeta and Trunks are a slot 1 unit. So I'm actually just going to leave him in slot 1. And hopefully we can additional super like a decent amount. Stack him up as much as possible, but we do need to leave him in this for at least 4 turns. So this is his second turn in this, because then he can have the full 100% attack and defense. So there's 1. Can we get 2? There's 2. We're up to 5.78. Again, this is without his full passive built up as well. Can we get 3rd? We don't get 3rd. We don't even get a 3rd. Oh, I just realized as well that 50% chance of an additional super, that second built-in additional, will start from the 4th turn. So once his passive is fully built up after 4 turns is when he'll get that 50% chance to additional super. And then he'll then get a chance upon a critical hit plus 30% within the same turn of each attack performed. Which is very nice because that's a lot of crit chance to build up. So in this form, which again, just like Zamasu, but more so in Trunks' case, you're probably going to stay in this form for as long as possible and only use his active skill. And as I said, this applies to Trunks a lot more than Zamasu. You're probably only going to use his active skill again when you're looking for that big amounts of damage. You're ready to end the event. Trunks is on your final rotation. Use the active skill. It's enough to do enough damage to beat the enemy you're facing. That's probably the only time you're going to use Trunks' active skill. Other than that, you're probably going to keep him in this form. Because again, that way he's stacking the entire time, literally until you finish the event by 50%. And then after he's finished building up after the 4 turns, got that key plus 4 and attack and defense plus 100%. He's then not only got the base super he does, he's then got the 70% chance of additional super, then the 50 starting from turn 4, and then hidden potential system super attack as well. So as I said, more so for Trunks, it probably is worth keeping him in this form for as long as possible and only using the active skill when you're ready to go for that big damage payoff and completely end the event and get the kill shot. Because at least Zamasu, when he uses active, yes, as we saw, he's doing like 16 million attack stats. It is hyper attack focused. But at least you have wherever your defense is sitting at that point, which Trunks will have too, but you still retain 30% damage reduction. And on top of that as well, again, Trunks currently, at least we could see one in part 2 with one of the part 2 Carnival LRs, they could have their own domain, but currently he doesn't have one. Whereas again, Zamasu has the Tech LR Fusion Zamasu, giving him the domain, giving him the support, the big 60% defense buff, whereas Trunks doesn't have any coverage in that active skill. He doesn't really have any here either, but aside from the fact he's continuously stacking. So we're up to 1 million attack stat, 466k defense. Like, don't get me wrong, his defense is enough to contend with a lot of enemies in the game, basic-wise. You know, currently, we're only on turn 7 to be fair, but, you know, we don't have that much long-form content in the game. Like, the closest we've got to that is Broly and, like, one of the Shadow Dragon events from Sin to Omega. But we don't really have long-form content. And all Trunks has to rely on is purely his stacking. Whereas, as I said, Zamasu stacks and has damage reduction. So if Trunks, as I said, had a little bit extra, or if Trunks just had damage reduction as well, Trunks would be in a much better spot. I'm not saying Trunks is bad. It's just right now, from what I'm seeing, Trunks can get supered by, I think, any enemy in the game and take a ton of damage. He would survive a Red Zone Omega. Well, technically Sin, because of course Red Zone Omega has the KO, so Trunks would actually die, which is fair enough. Like a Red Zone Sin, he'll probably survive, but take a bit of damage. Cell Max, he would currently survive, but take a bit of damage. Broly, I think... Ooh, Broly's doing like 1.4 mil. I think maybe he would survive right now, purely just because he has not damage reduction, purely because he has type advantage, but I still think he'd still take a chunk. Cooler Core, he's dead. Sin, he's dead. The new Rose stage, he's dead. Especially because I typed disadvantage. But Mega on JP, he's dead. So it's good. As I said, the amount of times he can possibly super attack in one turn, all with a 50% attack and defense raise, is great. But solely relying on that in content that isn't long form content, it does kind of play against him, I won't lie. But we are up to 879k defense. This is more like it. So turn 9, if you can get to turn 9, which isn't uncommon, you can do that against Broly. You could probably do that against Sin. You could probably do that against the Mega, which is the majority of the most difficult enemies in the game. Not only will he be tanking like every basic for double digits, aside from where he probably has type disadvantage, so Rose, but a lot of the super attacks now he can survive and you won't be almost dead. There's a couple that will still catch him, but he can survive them, but you'll be taking quite a bit of damage. So this is more like it. This is good. But as you can see, we're up to 800k defense on turn 9. So if the additional supers in his passive aren't popping, if that 70% chance isn't popping, also our passive is also fully brought up now as well. If the 50% chance after turn 4 isn't popping, if your hidden potential system additionals aren't popping, if you get really unlucky and you're only supering once or twice in one turn, then unfortunately Trunks' defense isn't going to be quite where you need it to be. Now items do exist. I am one of those that, I mean, the items in the game, you can use them. Trunks should be okay. But as I said, you do kind of have to rely on the additional supers popping, which there is a lot of chance for that to happen more often than not. But if they don't and you get quite unlucky, Trunks' defense is lacking quite a bit, which is a shame. Which is why, as I said, I do believe they should have given Trunks, at least while he's then stacking the attack and defense when you first transform him into Super Saiyan. This is why I do believe they should have given him, you know, 3-4 turn guard just to kind of cover him while he does start stacking and get on his feet, just so he isn't caught by like a stray super attack and then immediately you're almost dead, or you get one shot before Trunks even began to get going. But honestly, it doesn't take too long if those additional supers do pop, but unfortunately it's not consistent enough for me because again, it's all chance. If you do get unlucky, you might only super attack once or twice in a turn. But once he does get going, out of sheerly just relying on pretty much attack and defense, he's got some very good numbers. Very good numbers. Like, we're up to 1.13 million right now, which is great. That's enough to contend with every enemy in the game, I'm pretty sure. Basic wise, definitely. Majority of supers, yes. Again, you might take a bit of damage from some people, but you'll survive. But as I said, right now, we're on turn 11. There's not many events where you're hitting turn 11, unfortunately. So if in future, if there's any content that's slightly longer or long form content, he's thriving. But we're going to pop his active and see how that does. We're up to a 2.66 million attack stat, 1.13 million defense. Let's pop this active. Another one I haven't seen in literal years.
This light is the energy of every living thing on the planet. Please, everyone, lend me your power. It's time, everyone.
All right, we're good to go. Let's test this form. So now that he's transformed, again, you really only want to be popping Trunks' active when you're going for the big damage, when you're going for the kill shot. So now this is where Trunks stops stacking. He will raise his attack by 100%. And all of his attack and defense purely comes from, or the majority comes from, per key sphere obtained. You're pretty much nuking. So now that we've transformed, we lose a ton, actually we lose a ton of everything. But again, as long as we pick up a ton of key spheres, we will kind of make it back. The start of turn, 762k attack stat. As you can see, again, we've lost a ton of defense. We're down to 322k. He has guaranteed crit though, which is why I've said you mainly want to pull this form out when you're going for the kill shot, when you're going for the big damage. He does really randomly change certain types of key spheres to tech key spheres. As you can see, we haven't got very lucky in terms of our orb changing and how many orbs we're picking up. So that is one thing you do have to remember. You could get quite unlucky and orb placement might not be in your favor. But even with only 5 key spheres, we're up to 3.4 million in attack. So I said you mainly only want to be popping his active when you're going for the big damage. You're going to kill off the enemy. You're going to finish the event. And we have 645k defense. Again, this is what, 3.4 mil attack stat with a guaranteed crit. And they'll also get an additional attack plus 50% when performing a super attack, and superclass allies will get key plus 3 with 4 more key spheres obtained, which we did. 12.2 million. That's with only 5 key spheres, which is really good. And it is a ton of damage. But I will say this, while, as I said, this form is great to do a ton of damage, like if you can get the key spheres, especially with the guaranteed crit, Trunks will do absurd amounts of damage. Like, it will be ridiculous, which is great. And once Trunks gets going, his defense in a very good spot, and so like just solely relying on his defense, over a milli can contend with the majority of enemies in the game. And Trunks will survive. But that was only up to turn 11 where we got Trunks to that kind of defense. So while Trunks is decent, like he's solid, solely relying on him just stacking the entire time isn't enough, unfortunately, even with all the possible supers you can do to stack him up quicker. Because again, you also have to rely on those additional supers popping for him to build up that quickly as well, which we got quite lucky with. So if that doesn't happen, he isn't going to be built up nearly enough of where you need him. With an item active, he should be okay for the most part. Like, he's good, he's solid, but it's just quite not enough for like the top most difficult content. Now, I've seen him be used against Omega and he can actually do very well, but he can also be caught very easily by Omega before you've gotten to the point you need him to get to, which is that over a milli defense. So again, I think the only thing I'd probably change about this Trunks is he needed some like conditional guard, like he needed some guard for a little bit. I said, even if it was only for a few turns, he needed some guard to just cover him while you're building him up so he doesn't get caught. And he would have benefited a whole lot from it. And unlike Zamasu, his active skill, while the damage is great, especially with a guaranteed crit, like you can do a ton of damage if you get enough key spheres. While that's great, you definitely only want to be using his active skill when you're going for the kill shot and you're ready to end the event. You do it early, Trunks can get caught. Now with 600k defense, again, that was up to turn 11. With an item active, he's good. He's fine. But again, you mainly only want to be using his active skill when you're ready to end the event. His EZA is still good. It's just lacking a little bit. And compared to Zamasu, unfortunately for Trunks, he doesn't match up because Zamasu is ridiculously good. But who knows? Maybe in part 2, if we do get like a new Sword of Hope Trunks, or maybe if it is double Trunkses, there could be a new domain that helps him out massively. You know, maybe that new Trunks might have something in his passive that also helps him massively. We'll have to see. But for now, he's just solid. He's just good. He's just decent. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'll see you next video, guys. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. Push.